1.
Okay, this is a call to order of the second regular meeting for October. Today's date is October 13th, 2020, and the time is noted as being 6:31 p.m. If we'd all say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it
which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
and justice for all.
Okay. So, Madam Secretary, if you would please call the roll.
Sure. 1 second. Miss Allen,
Here,
Mr. Benahan,
Present.
Mr. Lombard,
Here.
Miss Martinez, Mr. Sokolovic,
Present.
Mr. Taylor, Mr. Hernan, Mr. Weldon,
Present.
Bobby Brown present.
Ms. Brown. Okay, we have a quorum. Before we move on to public comment, I just want to make an acknowledgement and ask that we observe a moment of silence in memory of a teacher who passed away this past Friday. Alita Rumpf was teacher in 6th grade for the past 6 years at Roosevelt School. She suffered an illness and succumbed to that illness this past Friday. And we're very sorry for her family's loss and the loss of the Roosevelt community. And I think it's appropriate if we just observe a moment of silence in her memory. Okay, thank you for your indulgence. Our deepest condolences to her family and to the Roosevelt community who knew her well. Next on the agenda is public comment. This is agenda items only. I'm going to defer to Ms. Vallier to start ushering people in. I'd like people to state their first and last name for the record, the agenda item that they're planning to address. Again, this is agenda items only. If you have general comments to make, there are other forums to address those. So, Ms. Vallier, if you'd start the process.
Sure. So the first person that we will be calling in is Reverend William McCullough. In just a moment, we'll get him right in with us.
Do you know what agenda item he's speaking about?
It is relating to control transfers.
Okay.
Hello?
Start the process.
Hello, Reverend McCullough.
Sure.
Yes, this is
The first person that we will be calling in is Reverend William McCullough. In just a moment, we'll get him right in with us.
If anybody is watching this on YouTube while they are participating in the meeting, I would ask that you mute YouTube because we're getting a little feedback. Okay. Pastor McCullough, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. I'm Pastor William McCullough, the pastor of Russell Temple CME Church here in the city of Bridgeport, Connecticut. I'm also the president of the IMA, the Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance, and the founder of Faith Facts for Education. We are 500 members, 80 churches, and 2,000 voters strong. Today, I asked the board to revisit their process for making major policy changes for the district, including the policy change for the discussion tonight about control transfers. The superintendent and members of the governance committee have discussed issues related to control transfers and the idea to change the policy to reduce the amount of people actively receiving control transfers to move their kids to better schools. We know you have tough decisions to make. We're in a tough time, but this is where you lean on others for support. As a spiritual leader in our community, I am compelled to collaborate with members of my congregation as I grapple with tough decisions that have to be made concerning the direction of our congregation during these challenging times. You can no longer make decisions behind closed doors without community input. An elected official is elected to serve. So where's the servant mentality? We have been trying to meet with you, and other organizations are trying to meet with you only to no travail. This is unacceptable. It's on the board to do this. Aside from talking to us, create more spaces to hear from others as well. Hold a public forum to hear from the community and inform your decisions based on the needs of your constituents. If the controlled transfer policy is causing issues for the district, for students who get pushed out of their placements, if a school gets too overcrowded, then we should address the reason why so many parents are vying to get seats in the same schools. We will be calling you to sit down with you, all of you, and finding out what would work best for our kids and community. And I look forward to addressing the larger systemic issues that are impacting all of us. Thank you so much for your time and allowing me to speak during this meeting. Be blessed.
Thank you. You too, Pastor. Okay, we're ready for the next speaker.
Chairman Weldon, I just want to be recognized for the record that Jessica Martinez is here.
Let the record reflect that Ms. Martinez has arrived at the meeting. Ms. Valier.
At this given time, I'd like to call in Ms. Brittany Berrios.
What's the name again?
Brittany Berrios.
Okay, and what agenda item?
It is regarding hybrid for Black Rock 5th grade.
That's not an agenda item.
We'll follow along possibly with things that maybe we'll discuss, whether within committee or even discussions from the superintendent.
Okay.
Okay. What agenda item? It is regarding hybrid for Black Rock 5th grade.
I would remind the speaker, if you are playing, if you're broadcasting this meeting on YouTube on your computer while you're talking on the phone, I would ask that you mute your YouTube because we're getting some feedback.
Okay, sorry. Hold on
Okay.
one second. Okay. Good evening. My name is Brittany Berrios. I am a mother of a 5th grader at Black Rock Elementary School.
Okay.
And I know that this is not on the agenda tonight, but this is a very big concern of mine coming into the cold season and the flu season. I really think that we should have the elementary schools start looking at going hybrid due to we've already had a lot of cases with students or faculty or schools getting shut down, and due to kids or whoever getting sick by the corona, and with the flu season coming up, I think it's best to catch it before it starts. And I don't think taking the kids out of school completely and would be fair in waiting for somebody to get sick and making the whole school get on lockdown. I think that the hybrid situation for an elementary school for the district in Bridgeport would be the best thing for the elementary school kids, so they can all be on the grade level that they need to be in and learning and be participating and be safe.
Okay. Is that it, Ms. Berrios?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Well, thank you for giving us your time. please stay tuned for the remainder of the meeting. Hopefully
I will.
some of your concerns will be addressed. Okay?
I thank you so much.
Okay.
Have
Have a good night. Ms. Valier?
Yes, at this given time, we will be hearing from Ms. Naomi Nieves. Ms. Nieves?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Naomi Nieves. I am a Bridgeport parent member of the Faith Acts for Education and have worked in many capacities with the Bridgeport Board of Education. Schools I've worked in and with include Central, Roosevelt, and Dunbar. I've also served as PTSO president of Harding High School for some time. I'm here to discuss the board's proposal policy change on controlled transfers. Controlled transfers are important to parents who seek better options for children, and they wouldn't be overused if the quality of Bridgeport schools were up to par. Let's be honest. But most importantly, the rush to complete this policy change without creating the space for public input and weigh-in is alarming and part of the problem. The district has a tendency of making decisions swiftly and shutting the door in the community's face, instead of inviting us in to be a part of the change that would impact us all. On this evening, I'm asking to please hold off on voting for this policy before taking the time to listen to parents, students, and educators. Locking us out of rooms where discussions are made is not helping create a quality environment for our students. I urge members of the board and the superintendent to meet with groups of parents and community members, including Faith Acts. Refusing to meet with us, it's not serving the best interest of our students. We've been trying to meet with you all and have not been successful. I would like to meet with you as soon as possible to loop you in on the facts happening on the grounds of our community instead of assuming, so that together we can make a change. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Ms. Nieves.
Yes, sir.
I just want to clarify. The control transfer policy, tonight, there's not going to be a vote taken. This is the first of 3 reads that will occur, specifically for the purpose of allowing board members and the public to chime in through public comment. So this will be a multiple week process. So we are not trying to ram anything through this evening. I apologize if you were given that impression somehow, but this is only the first of 3 reads, and the draft policy as it is now may change as those reads occur.
So is it safe to say that upon you sitting down to have this discussion, you will be inviting us as a people in, including Faith Acts?
It's safe to say that we are going to listen to the public as we develop this policy to its final iteration. Ms. Valier, the next speaker.
Yes, sir. The next speaker that I have is Ms. Ana Batista.
Ms. Batista is the president of BEA?
That is correct, sir.
Correct, for the record. Okay. Ms. Batista, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Ana Batista, Bridgeport Education Association president. I'd like to begin with thanking Superintendent Testani for agreeing to participate in a superintendent's roundtable. Mr. Testani has been coming to the BEA office to hear teachers' perspectives of the school year and to hear our membership concerns. Each meeting began with teachers describing how their daily routines have been impacted by the pandemic and by the district's reopening decisions. Topics included building cleaning, PPE, scheduling, curriculum, technology, communication, staffing, substitutes, protocols, and procedures. We opened schools under extreme pressure and anxiety. We assured teachers that students would remain in cohorts. According to our agreement, teachers would not be responsible for direct or indirect instruction of students assigned to another teacher. That is not the current case. For instance, in one school, a fourth grade teacher was absent and another fourth grade teacher was sent to the cafetorium to teach both classes all day. In other schools, they are starting to split classes due to lack of subs. This is unsafe for teachers, students, and the wider community. Cohorts must be strictly maintained to ensure health and safety. The greater majority of teachers are coming to work every day. They continue the very difficult task of instructing the children that are live in front of them and at the same time, the remote students. It's counterproductive and detrimental to blame teachers. They didn't create the situation and are working to the best of their ability. In my opinion, the current situation is not sustainable, especially if cohorts are not honored. Staffing issues continue, and the number of schools with identified COVID cases continue to rise. And I do ask you to please keep the promise. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bautista. Ms. Valle, do we have another speaker?
The other speakers did not call in to participate.
Okay, that closes public comment. Thank you all for participating. Next on the agenda is approval of board minutes, the first being the September 14th, 2020 regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Allen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sokolovic. Is there any discussion or any edits to be made? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of approving the September 14th, 2020 regular meeting minutes, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, next is the October 1st, 2020 special meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Allen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Brown. Is there any discussion or any edits? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Mr. Lombard abstains, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Chairman's report, in the interests of time, I don't have anything of substance to report. We'll move on to committee reports and referrals. First being educational diversity, equity, and inclusion. Is there any?
Well, there's nothing to report on that just yet. Our first meeting will be Monday, October 19th, and I invite everybody to come. One of the agenda items is going to be our goals and objectives, and I would like fellow committee members as well as board members to be able to chime in as we form this new committee, and I'm excited to get ready to buckle down and do this work that needs to be done.
Okay. Is there any referrals for this committee? Facilities Committee. Mr. Illingworth is chair of that committee. I'm a member of that committee. The only item of substance to come out of the committee from the last meeting is item 10A that we see here this evening, which is discussion and possible approval of a basketball court repair for Wilbur Cross. So that item will come next on the agenda, sometime further down the agenda. Are there any referrals for facilities? Okay. Next is Finance Committee. Mr. Sokolovic, do you have anything to report?
We basically had the report during our special meeting. It's basically everything that took place is the wrap up of the final year budget. And we'll be meeting again tomorrow, 6 p.m. virtually.
Okay. Any referrals, finance? Governance Committee. Again, this is Mr. Illingworth's committee. The substantive item to come out of that committee over the past week is item 10B, which is the first read and discussion of revised policy number 5116A, which is controlled transfers. that item will be coming later on the agenda. Are there any referrals for governance? Okay, personnel. There's nothing to report on personnel. Are there any referrals? Students and families. Mr. Benahan, is there anything to report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would say, first of all, I have to say thank you for my members, Mr. Joe and Ms. Bobby Brown, to be attended, and Mr. Plana. And I know we have another staff that was attended. Thank you for Rita and Mr. Grassley to put my agenda updates and everything. We have a good meeting talking about the budget. We talk about the parent convention. We talk so many things that will be almost an hour and a half in the meeting. But Miss Rosha, she's doing an amazing, phenomenal job trying to communicate with all the PAC and BDSO to help them how to do the action plan, how to spend the money, the budget, how to do meetings with the parents, the protocol. You know, they can do a meeting on Teams like the way we do. They can do it in Teams or they can do it in Zoom with the parents and the PAC leaders. So I'm working with some PAC leaders and PDA, so I'll refer to her so they can help them, and then we can be on the same page. I know we have some things to add for the next meeting, but I will mail it to you. But so far, everything goes very well. That's it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any referrals for students and families?
Not a referral, but I just got Mr. Benahan a question.
Okay.
We had made a move to put on the agenda for bylaws to be looked at by all the PAC leaders and to vote whether they're willing to accept them or not. Can you? I think Mr. Testani got his hand up.
Yeah, I have a meeting with all the PAC leaders, Ms. Rosha Reyes and I on Thursday evening. And they will all be given a copy of the bylaws that were presented at the last board meeting. They will then be able to take that home, digest it, discuss it, and then at a later time, we could formally have a meeting where they can vote upon it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Benahan.
I have a question for Mr. Testani. They don't send the email to all the principals, so the principal they can make a copy for all these PAC presidents and PTS or leaders about the bylaws draft.
No, I'm gonna make the copies and present them at Thursday evening's meeting at Harding High School.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Next up is teaching and learning. Mr. Sokolovic, anything to report?
Nothing to report, but teaching and learning will be meeting next Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. virtually.
Okay. I actually have a referral for teaching and learning.
Yes, sir.
Toward the end of last week, I was in receipt of appears to be a resolution introduced by City Council members Maria Valle, Council President Nieves, Nita Martinez, and Ernest Newton concerning support of a railroad track safety curriculum. I think they want a safety course taught at some level in the district, and they have made reference to two specific programs. One that is operated by Metro North, which is called TRAX, and another one which is administered by Connecticut Department of Transportation called Operation Lifesaver. So I'm going to refer to your committee to look into that a little further. I'll email you these terms and some connective links that you and your staff advisor, Mr. Testani, can maybe start looking into. I don't know how extensive this would be. The impression I have is this is something like maybe once a year, 45-minute to an hour long, almost a seminar taught at every grade level to kind of keep kids aware of the dangers that exist in railroad crossings. So I refer that to your committee, Mr. Sokolovic.
Okay, it'll be, let's see.
I don't expect you to start doing anything with it next Thursday. I understand there's some research to be done.
Okay, so it'll be on the following agenda. I'll put it on the following agenda. I got a pretty.
Yeah, this is a little short notice. So, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All right. That concludes committee reports and referrals. Next up is the superintendent's report. Mr. Testani, you have the floor. You're on mute, I think.
Sorry.
That's better.
I just want to start, I know we had the moment of silence. I do want to say a few words. Miss Alita Rumpf was a sixth grade teacher at Roosevelt School for the past 6+ years. We were lucky enough to have a teacher of that caliber here in Bridgeport. Prior to coming to Bridgeport, she was Teacher of the Year at Cedar Lane Elementary School in Delaware. And in 2010, she was a Fulbright Scholar Award winner. So I just want to make that mention, and recently became a new mom. So our prayers go out to Miss Rump and her family, and the entire Roosevelt School family as well. So I know this is not going to do any justice, but I just wanted to make mention of that because I think it's important to know the caliber of person that the Bridgeport Public Schools and her family lost this week. That being said, I just want to comment, I don't know if we should comment now or you want to wait on the control transfer, but I guess that's an agenda item we can comment.
Yeah, I think we could segue into that separately.
Okay, so one of the things that has, obviously the board is well aware that we've had cases popping up at different schools. We've had a couple of schools that have been a little bit more problematic. We've had a few schools that have not been impacted as of yet. I think the mom from Black Rock, Ms. Barrios, who spoke earlier, must have had some intuition about what was going to be presented by me at tonight's meeting. I do have some concerns. I've spoken to Lisa Morrissey, the director of the Bridgeport Public Health, and we've talked a little bit and extensively a little bit more over the last couple of days, and then this morning again, about how to proceed as we get into the fall and winter months. We are holding some pop-up testing throughout the district at different schools. We're also anticipating with more cases. My concern really is the disruption to each school community that occurs when we do have a positive test. We are, as Ms. Ana Batista mentioned, we're having some staffing issues when it comes to teachers that are out on FMLA, teachers that are calling out sick because they're stressed, and the lack of subs. Now, we've put in a lot of work. Our HR department has done extensive work on trying to alleviate some of the stressors in the coming months to address long-term substitute needs, building substitute needs. My concern is that it's not going to be enough. And as we get into the flu season, as we see children being kept home, and maybe not for COVID reasons, but the level of anxiety that it's going to cause when teachers in their classrooms see students that are out for 3-4 days and returning back to their classroom. We cannot require everyone to go for a test. We know that some students are going to test and they're going to be positive for the flu and not for COVID. So that being said, to try to minimize disruptions when these things happen in schools, to be also prepared for what the future could bring this winter. My proposal is on November 30th after Thanksgiving to move, as we have in the high schools, to a hybrid model at our elementary schools. I think this will do a few things. Number one, it'll reduce some of the density in our classrooms. We have certain schools, as you can imagine, in some of our larger schools where we have a lot of kids in classrooms. And I think that's where a lot of concern has come. We're starting again to see more folks going out and getting tested, which is causing more tests to come back positive. I'm just concerned about that. So reducing the density in the schools, giving that remote opportunity to all students, so that when and if we have to go to a full pivot for any time frame, a short closure or maybe a longer closure, everyone will be prepared. And it gives us several weeks now to prepare for those in-person learners that would be going to remote, and addressing any of the connectivity issues they would have at home. We're prepared to do that. We have devices, we have new devices to send home with every child by the time we got to November 30th. So we feel comfortable on where we're at now than we were back in the spring in terms of technology access for students at home. So those are some of the concerns that I'd like to try to get ahead of rather than be reacting later on. I'd like to give parents some time to prepare for this. This would not be permanent for the entire school year. According to Lisa, the time frame we would be looking at is December and January, and possibly the first 2 weeks of February, and that's where we normally would see a major decline in flu in our community. We could reevaluate as we got into January a little bit more closely, as she said, to see what the flu numbers are looking at. That could then reduce the time a little bit, or maybe extend it till March 1st. So that's just what I'm proposing today. I'd like to hear from the board, and without board support behind this, I think that it becomes more of a difficult lift for me. But just something that I'd like to present tonight and get some feedback from the board members here. Just also the difference in this model would also be that teachers would report to work, obviously every day, including what high school teachers are doing now on Wednesday, and they would work remotely from their classroom. And again, it would help with the cohorting that Ms. Batista brought up, because in the couple of incidences at the high school, it's really isolated. We're able to pinpoint, and it doesn't have a larger effect on the school building and school community in this current model. So I see Mr. Sokolovic has his hand up, and I'm ready.
I was just going to go around the table.
Okay.
Are you complete with your report?
Yeah, I'm ready to take some questions.
All right, Mr. Sokolovic.
Yes, Mr. Testani. Yeah, I agree. It's a great idea, but I just have one question, or maybe a concern. We recently locked parents into a decision until after winter break, based on a whole different metric. Now, the parents, if we're shifting to hybrid, the metric was some parents are keeping their kids home because there's 15 kids, 16 kids in a class, possibly. Now we're shifting to, with the hybrid model, maybe 10 at most in a class, or possible with the current situation. Will there be a chance for parents to reevaluate the decision based on the new metrics?
I think it's worth giving them another crack at or another bite at the apple. Yes, I think we want to really encourage. I mean, for me, to encourage more students to come to school in person would be great. I'd like to see everybody come to school in the hybrid model, if that's at all possible. We would maintain, as we do at the high school, 4 days a week for special education students with IEPs. 504 students, and also English language learners. So our most vulnerable students would have the 4-day access as we do at the high school.
Also, it's gonna be Wednesdays for deep cleaning. Say it's
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Ms. Allen, do you have any questions for Mr. Testani?
Not at this time.
I just want to also mention before we go on to the next speaker, I think when you look at our surrounding communities, they've had a major impact of COVID cases at the high school level. They've kind of run a different type of model than we have. I don't know if it's our model. I don't know if it's just the hard work our staff at the high schools have been able to do, but I think we've done really well. And I think that model could trickle down to our elementary, middle schools, because that's where we're seeing the most cases pop up.
Okay. Mr. Benahan, any questions?
No, I'm not, sir.
Okay. Ms. Brown?
No questions, but I do agree based off of how we need to pay attention to how the weather's going to shift for our students. I do believe a hybrid model will be something that really can support our students in this transition. I was just trying to view all the different districts, and even though some of them may have already done it, I do think that Bridgeport can do this, and also to make sure that we're able to support the parents with their decisions. So Joe actually asked the question I was going to ask. I do appreciate that clarification on that.
Okay. Mr. Lombard?
Yes, actually, my question is not specifically to go into the hybrid, but in general, when we do have to do these temporary, quarantine closings, how does that factor into the overall attendance for the year for those students? Because I don't recall how that works.
So that's a great question. So when we do the quarantine and everybody shifts to virtual, we do take attendance as if they were the remote learners. So we've added in Power School a virtually present attendance taking feature. So they're virtually present, so they're counted as being in school. But that's a good question. It's to no fault of their own, but the quarantining process. We've tried to go above and beyond in our quarantining. Because of the cohorting model at the middle school in particular, you tend to see everybody have to go out because teachers rotate in, and so everybody's kind of affected by not having a teacher present and not being able to cover with substitutes. And then on top of that, the number of siblings also has a major effect on in the disruption in the school. So, but they are marked virtually present if they participate during the quarantine from home.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Martinez, any questions?
I don't have any questions. I support the changes that need to be made. I'm concerned with those who are struggling to be in the classroom and there's a teacher teaching with the iPad in their face or with the tablet in their face. And then again, I'm concerned with those who are not getting the necessary, or they're struggling and they're at home and they want to be in the classroom. But this is something that the superintendent and his team is doing a great job managing. So I support what has to be done. Whatever has to be done to protect our children, and let's just ensure that they're learning. That's all. No questions.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, for my part, I think this is a wise, proactive decision. The weather's going to change. Flu season is coming. To be on the offensive rather than the defensive on this, I think is the smart move. And then if it does get to a point where we do have to pivot to complete remote learning, it'll be that much easier to do that because we'll already be kind of halfway there. So I think it positions us on both sides of the fence to be able to take whatever we've got coming. So is there anything else you have to report?
Mr. Chair, I got another question, please.
You got another question? Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, it's about the dashboard, Mr. Testani. You see 24/6 and the locations impacted is my main question. Some locations have been impacted twice. Were they only counted once in the?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So
Yes.
17 locations.
Yes.
They're separate and distinct. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else have a question or follow-up comment? Okay. So there's no old business to conduct. New business, we have 2 items. First is discussion possible approval of basketball court repairs for Wilbur Cross School. Mr. Testani, are you reporting on this?
I double check. I believe so.
This item was referred out of the facilities committee last week.
Correct. So as we did at Curial School, we have the organization to come in and refurbish our basketball court over at Wilbur Cross School. It's at no cost to the district. I can tell you from what's been done over at Barnum and what's been done over at Curiel, it seems to be a big hit in the neighborhood. Kids are taking advantage of the opportunity to play in the new courts. I contacted Public Facilities, Craig Nadrizny, to get some garbage cans over to the courts because of the number of kids that were out there. So we wanted to make sure that they were responsible and keep the place clean. But it was refreshing to see that many kids taking advantage of the refurbished basketball courts. So we're just looking to do another one up in the north end. I think that court needs some TLC in the back over there. One of the concerns that has been raised that we're going to work with the city and facilities to try to make sure that we're able to, and Lieutenant Grech, make sure that we have cameras and proper lighting and security there, because it is behind the building. It's in a very remote area, and we just want to make sure kids are safe while they're back there playing basketball. So.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? I'll just go down the list. Ms. Allen, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. Mr. Benahan?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Brown?
No questions.
Okay. Mr. Lombard?
No questions.
Ms. Martinez? Mr. Skolovic?
No, sir.
Okay. So I will entertain a motion to approve the basketball court repairs for Wilbur Cross School. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Allen. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Mr. Benahan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we got another basketball court. Nice. Last item is the first read and discussion of revised policy number 5116A, which is entitled Controlled Transfers. This item was presented to the Governance Committee and was referred from the Governance Committee to go through the full 3 reads here at the full board level. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the policy. It's been sent to you previously. I'm sure you've all read it yourselves, but for the benefit of the public who maybe doesn't have a copy, I'm going to read it into the record. Mr. McLeod, I'll email you a copy that you can cut and paste from. It is not even a page, so it should not take that long.
Do you want me to share my screen so everyone can see it while you read it?
Yeah, sure. That's fine.
Okay.
Let me know when you've done that.
All set.
Okay. Controlled transfer policy, policy number 5116A, draft, October 5th, 2020. It is the policy of the Bridgeport Board of Education that students shall attend schools based upon geographic district lines. Exceptions to this policy are permitted under this controlled transfer policy, which permits transfers to other schools within Bridgeport in accordance with the following. Once Bridgeport residency has been established in accordance with state law, students shall attend the school designated for that residence. Attendance areas are established by the Board of Education. A student may be granted a change in attendance area at the superintendent's discretion if space and program are available and for a specific demonstrable need. The superintendent's decision shall be made with the best interest of the school district in mind. Irrespective of demonstrable need, a student may be permitted to complete the school year in their previously assigned attendance area if the student has moved within Bridgeport and has started the school year. No transportation shall be provided to these students. If the move occurs during grade 5, grade 7, or grade 11, the student will be permitted to attend grade 6, grade 8, or grade 12, respectively, in the school the student had been attending when the requirement that the student follow the middle school or high school assignment designated for the residence. Siblings are not included as part of this provision. In the interest of the student, the district anticipates maintaining an out-of-attendance area placement for the duration of the school level in which the out-of-attendance area placement is initially granted, such as elementary school, middle school, or high school. However, a parent or guardian shall not accept an out-of-attendance area placement without the full understanding that such placement may be subject to an annual review by the superintendent or designee and may be withdrawn if it is not in the best interest of the school district. Transportation of out-of-attendance area students will be provided to and from the alternate school by the parents or guardians. Again, the district will not provide transportation. In the event of redistricting, the board may consider modifications to this policy to accommodate circumstances created by the redistricting plan. Thus concludes the first read of that policy. I'll go around the table, see if anyone has any questions. Ms. Allen, do you have anything to say about this?
Are you saying that that transportation will not be provided? It's incumbent upon the parent to provide the transportation?
Yes, that's the current policy as well. Before we had too many questions, I wanted to add that we asked data management to provide us with an approximate number because it's not always well kept at the school level. And there's been a lot of changeover in the district over the last several years. But data management anticipates or estimates that there's between 2,000 to 2,500 students right now that are attending schools that are not their area school. It's over 10% of the school district, which has caused, as we know, some schools to be overcrowded and some schools to be well under enrolled. And we're trying to get a better handle on this in conjunction with the need for redistricting. We have software that we can begin that process in order to try to redistribute properly the number of students attending so that we optimize, class sizes, and we also optimize school space. This is not about, the idea is to make all schools in Bridgeport of the highest quality. And, I think it makes our jobs a lot more difficult when we're unable to do the job by just granting, control transfer after control transfer after control transfer. And then again, it doesn't lead to just one control transfer. Over the, we're tied to three, sometimes up to 3 or 4 over the next decade plus. So this is where we've run into some issues, and we have folks that are moving into schools. And when we revoke the control transfer because of an overcrowding issue, and we need to make room for a neighborhood student, it just displaces, kids. It upsets folks. I understand what some of the speakers had to say, but changing the policy or not doesn't guarantee that these control transfers will be granted. Just because you put in an application doesn't mean we grant the control transfer or we give the control transfer request of the school that's desired. Last year we looked at each control transfer very carefully, the reason why the parent was asking for it. And when we offered schools that were not what they wanted, the reason to leave the school all of a sudden wasn't exactly the way it was written in the application. So I think it's important that we get a better handle of this over the next few years to try to focus on improving the quality of education across the district.
Hang on, correct me if I'm wrong, but control transfers for the current year have been suspended because of the current circumstances related to COVID?
Yes.
So there are no, at present this year, there are no active control transfers.
There's no new ones.
No. Oh, are there some that have carried over from last year?
They all carry over.
Okay, so that 2,000 to 2,500 is from last year. carrying
Well,
over to the
from the
present?
last several years. They're supposed to be
Okay.
looked at every year and reapplied for, if you look at our policy.
Okay.
That has not been the case for over a decade. So they just accumulate and accumulate, and then it is up to the principal, if there's behavior issues, tardiness issues, or academic issues, to heed warnings, have meetings prior to the revoking of the control transfer. So we're not looking to revoke all these control transfers with the change in policy. We're looking to get a better handle on it moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lombard, I'm sorry.
Yes, so before we go into our individual questions, I was wondering, can we be informed of what were the specific changes into this proposed policy? What is different from what it was? So we know specifically what we're talking about? Because I'm not aware of the old policy, of what was in it compared to what this proposal is. So what are the changes? What's different?
Well, number one, we're trying to maintain that if a child is in the grade before they leave a school, we are saying they should maintain their attendance in that building. So if in 7th grade, my parents moved to a different school, I should be allowed to finish my 8th grade year there. So we're protecting that. But we're protecting the 8th grade year, but then we're not protecting the feeder pattern. So for example, if I attend Curial School and I want to maintain my 8th grade year at Curial School, I don't want it, but I moved to Blackham, my 9th grade year would go to Blackham's feeder program, because that's where I live, which would be Central High School, not Bassick High School. So we would maintain for the year so you can finish out and graduate with your friends and your classmates, but then you would then move on to the district that you live in. You could always reapply again, and we would look at that. Same thing if you're in 5th grade at a K-6 school, we would allow you to maintain your 6th grade, but then you would attend 7th grade in the feeder pattern of your residence. We're also not including siblings, which, this has become, as you can see, it's grown into something that we may have room for you now, but that doesn't mean 2-3 years down the road, we have room for your brother or sister entering kindergarten. So we have one school that has 4 kindergarten sections, 4 first grade sections, and 3 second grade sections. So it's become a pattern of overcrowdedness, where then in 2nd grade, we have to filter kids out after they've been there for 2 years. That's not fair to the child. So these are all the things we're trying to correct. And with a combination of the control transfers being under control and redistricting, we'll be able to balance the scales to a more equitable process.
So may I follow up on that, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So right now then, does the current policy allow for siblings automatic, or has it just been happening?
It's pretty much been happening.
So it doesn't say that they can, it's just we've been doing it.
We've been doing it consistently.
Okay. Oh, and then, okay, so that's something where we're now spelling out, we're not going to do it consistently.
Well, and the other thing, Mr. Lombard, to mention is that we all know class size is important to teaching and learning. We want to maintain as much as we can smaller class size, more individualized approach to teaching and learning. So when we see a class at 24 or 25, to say there's room because the contract says teachers can have 29, there's a cause and effect. So we add more kids to the classroom, which allows the control transfers, but then it also causes the teacher to have a less individualized approach to teaching and learning, because now instead of having 24 or 25, we're maxing out that classroom, and we start to max out more and more and more.
So is it some more that things weren't specifically spelled out, but they were just happening, and now you're spelling it out specifically? Is that the main change?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So Ms. Allen, did you have anything to add or ask?
No, I just, I'm kind of shocked, since my day that now there aren't 30 in a classroom because when I was here, it was 30. Now it's 29.
Okay. Mr. Benahan, do you have any questions?
Yes, I
Comments?
have some questions.
Okay.
Yes, I have some questions to Mr. Testani. Mr. Testani has some question for you. I'm going to give it to you and you can answer and in the way you can. First of all, I never received this policy. You know, I'm going checking my emails and I never received. Is this something new or this is something you guys already sent a long time ago? Because I'm checking my emails. I never received this policy. Second, who run this policy? It's a committee or it's only you, Mr. Testani? You will do the change. And one other question, I know Mr. Lombari, he just said, but I just want to know, you know, why is there some change? It's still that they are going to be a lot of change, or they had going to few change in the policy. That's my question for you, Mr. Testani.
Well, it went through the governance committee, and that's where the discussion was made. We made some alterations to the initial proposal. We worked off the current policy, and you know, there are slight changes, but it's really there needs to be a demonstrated need for why the control transfer is being requested. And that's not the case right now, that there's a demonstrated need. It's just, you know, I apply and, you know, in many cases, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and it's just been easier to, okay, if there's room, put them in, without really looking at if it's the right move or not. Not only for the schools and the operation of the school, but for the child. You know, in my experience, it's not always been a good move for children, because they're not in school with the kids in their neighborhood anymore. They're friends. They're traveling across town. It creates, you know, other issues down the road that when we have to take action, it hurts the child when they have to be revoked and go back and leave the school that they've been accustomed to because of issues that are clearly stated in the policy that need to be, a standard needs to be maintained. So.
To clarify, Mr. Benahan, this proposed policy and the current policy that exists were put into the board members portal. So you would have received an email from Ms. Valier with a link to the board member portal, and that's where all the documents reside. If you're having trouble finding it, I can arrange to have those two specific things emailed to you.
Yes, please. I will check again, and I will do it again. And my last question for you, Mr. Testani, if the student have a control transfer, and sorry, if the student have a transportation, sorry, that's my question. And right now it changed for another school, and he have a control transfer, something like that. So that key automatic, they will remove it from the transportation.
You don't receive transportation on a control transfer.
No, if the student right now have transportation, he's taking transportation, and let's give a sample. He have a control transfer because he moved or something in his school. So automatic, that kid will remove it from transportation.
Right. So if I get a bus to my neighborhood school and I request a control transfer and I get it, I don't get a bus to the new school. Correct. That's the policy. No transportation has ever been included with control transfers when the policy started. I don't know how many years ago, 30 years ago. This hasn't been looked at, except the revoking process hasn't been looked at probably in over 30 years.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. No more questions.
Okay. Ms. Brown, any questions or comments?
Yes. So my first question is, Mr. Testani, when it comes to the withdrawal process, is the school withdrawing them and placing them into the new school, or the school withdraws them and that's on the parent to re-register them in the new school? Because we have two sides of it. We have the student, obviously the parent can't come to the school, but is that all done online? Is the parents aware of the withdrawal process? That's
So,
my first question. And then
good
my
question.
second question is,
Yeah.
yeah, and
So,
then my second question is, go ahead, Mr. Tassani. I'll wait
I'm
for
sorry,
you
Bobby.
to
Yeah,
answer it.
so
No, you're fine.
when there is a revoking of the control transfer, there's a process. It's a 3-step process. Parents are notified. There's meetings that are held. So improvement can be made either in the behavior, the academics, or the attendance. But when it does get to a point, they are officially notified and the transfer is done through Power School. Parent does not have to come up to the school. They would just then bring their child to the neighborhood school once that process was completed. But that usually takes a significant period of time to give the child and the parent opportunity to change behavior, work on academics, or change the attendance issues that could be happening, whether it's tardiness or absences.
I think
Okay,
she was
so
also asking, she specifically said with the withdrawal process. So if somebody puts in for a controlled transfer and they're granted one, is the parent out of it at that point, or do they have to physically go to their current school and go through a withdrawal process and then go across town and go to the
correct.
new school and enroll? Or is that all handled internally by central office?
It's usually done internally through the schools. So a student has to be dropped, but in most cases, the parent does go get and sign the child and withdraw them officially from the school, because there is some paperwork that has to be signed. And then it's brought to the new school. But the control transfer paperwork is all done here at central office.
Okay, so then part A or B to that question is, with COVID keeping where parents are not able to come into the building, what do they need to do? Because I think that's what the bigger I would find as confusing to me if I was a parent was, once my student has already been dropped and now has to be re-enrolled into a new school, how long is that process for that child to be re-enrolled into a new school? Because now they have that period.
Immediate. So,
Okay.
yeah, we are taking appointments for all parents as walk-ins. They just give a call to the school and they're allowed to come into the building to do any type of registration or transfers or withdrawals. But it's
Okay,
immediate.
perfect.
It's immediate, yes.
Okay, good. I just didn't want students to miss out because of the process.
Absolutely.
And then my last question would be, now that we understand that students who may be living in, have gotten dropped from one school and now have to go to another school, and we are moving into the hybrid model, but how do we handle how do we make sure our students are safe? Because I'll give you a perfect example. I live on the East End. If I went from the East End to Central, I went from Hardin to Central. Students who know that I live on the East End, whatever the situation may be, how do we know our students are safe with that transition from one community to another community? I think that's a bigger concern with control transfers, whether the student did anything wrong or right, or however the situation may be. Now that they're being dropped and told to go back to their neighborhood schools, if they're doing in-person learning, how do we make sure that they're not being retaliated? I just know how the communities are.
So that's why we don't want to revoke all the control transfers now. We'd like to let them run their course. We would just be very careful in allowing new ones, so these problems aren't created later on. We do still have at our disposal what we call administrative transfers that we would exercise. So for example, if Bobby Brown was attending Central High School, but had some friends and from another side of town and was being targeted at school, we would allow an administrative transfer to another high school for safety reasons. You wouldn't need a control transfer.
Okay. So thank you. That was my two questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have another.
Yeah, you were actually next.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I thought I lost my chance
Nope.
when I asked earlier. Mr. Testani, can you share what, some of the voiced objections have been about this, so we understand the different perspectives? Reasons why this new policy might not be happily received, things like that. Are you aware of what those objections are?
No, I mean, other than the couple of speakers tonight from Faith Acts, I have not heard anything. Again, whether we change the policy or not doesn't guarantee that a controlled transfer is granted. We just want to be able to have parents really think this through. I mean, if the policy doesn't get changed, there's no guarantee that next year, if we're out of the pandemic, that if 100 students apply for controlled transfers, that we're going to grant all 100. We may grant 10 based on what the reasoning is, and we may grant 50, but it may not be to the school that's being requested. And it's not about better schools. I think it's also about providing equal education across the district. A lot of times it's because of a shiny new building opens up in the neighborhood, and parents would rather attend, have their child attend the new school. We built a lot of new schools over the last decade. So I think that's kind of one of those things. And once BASIC is done, all our high schools will be completed. And there won't be a need at the high school level to ask for controlled transfers. At the elementary level, we do have to come up with a capital plan that will address some of the buildings that we currently need to upgrade. But again, even some of the older buildings, when we proposed in the past to try to consolidate, parents don't want that. They want their local community schools. So I think it's important that we do this right, rather than do it, the other way, which is just, okay, you can apply for a controlled transfer and we won't grant them. I mean, we have to get a handle on the situation that we have right now. It's gotten out of control to have over 10% of the school district not attending the school in the area they reside in.
Okay, so not one thing standing out other than you're seeing a trend of people wanting shinier buildings or something, and they may not get that. Or is that kind of what? There's no real reason to think that, batting down the hatches on the policy is hurting anything or changing anything. It's just helping us have a ground to stand on when we enforce it.
Well, and it also helps trying to, not overextend resources in any particular schools as well. I think, again, we want to maintain, we've always talked about limiting, and reducing class size, but we're automatically packing schools while other schools have much lower enrollment. And, you would think that would make it more advantageous to stay at some neighborhood schools with lower enrollment to get more individualized attention. And then, the schools that are being overextended, with budget cuts, we're not able to service those kids properly. It's a shame.
And so, as far as this being the first read of 3, given this conversation, where are we taking this now? What input for have a different read for the second or the third? What are we taking from this?
Well, the purpose of first, second, third read is to have this kind of discussion. And if there are elements that the board thinks maybe need to be modified or tightened up, people submit testimony through public comment. You may consider some of the things they say in how we develop this all the way to the third read, to where hopefully by that time we have a document that everybody has thought about, edited, contributed to, and then we're in a position to finalize it. So that's the purpose, is to have this kind of discussion on multiple occasions.
So like that input that's coming from public comment during the board meeting itself goes back to the committee. Is that?
Well, no, I mean, it's going to be considered by the board. Now, in any of the things that you've heard tonight, has anyone heard anything that contributed to the substance of this proposed policy.
No, and that's also why I was asking about objections, because the biggest point that was coming across was all schools being quality schools and not just certain schools. So to me, you know, what Mr. Tani is trying to do sounds like just that very thing, you know, focusing on each individual school. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next, Ms. Martinez.
Yeah, I haven't even spoke yet. So that question you just asked was kind of not even in the right time. So I'm going to put my parent hat on and speak as a parent right now, not as a board member. I have 0 questions because 1, this is the first read, so I'm grateful for that. 2, you know, we need the second and third read so that not only do we understand the changes that will be happening, but the community will have time to have input and to digest it themselves. Now, as my parent had on, I utilized the control transfer policy for my child when he was in the 3rd grade at Luis Munoz Marin School. And that school was not adequate enough with the education level or the quality of education that I wanted him to have. Okay, not that I'm saying that it's the teacher's fault, not that I'm saying that he had amazing teachers. It is obviously the disparities that are amongst our district for centuries, right? So the superintendent fully understands his description of everything, you know, item by item is well digested by me, but he definitely understands we all have a good handle. But no, I believe that there are plenty of parents out there who are concerned of not only the level of education or quality of education that their child is getting, but also the bullying. Also, are they able to learn in the environments that they're in? You know, I brought a parent to him, I believe, last school year that was willing to pull her child out, and I'm going to say something unpopular, and bring him to a charter school or a private school. Our parents, and he was coming from Columbus School. Our parents should not have to face those things, but they are going to protect their children's future, their education, and wherever they want them to be. You know, he wasn't only, you know, not learning, he was also being picked on. So there's many reasons why parents utilize the control transfer policy to their benefit. And I highly doubt it's because of all of them. I highly doubt it's because of a shiny new building. Harding High School is a shiny new building. I love the school. I love the teachers there. I love the staff. I don't want my son there. You know, so it's like we have to really respect the voice and the position of parents and where their children belong. Now, it has been a fight on my behalf, on Albert's behalf, on many parents' behalf, for year after year, on Mr. Testani's behalf, to get quality education and to get equitable education across the board. There's been organizations out there fighting with our legislators. We need equitable education, and that doesn't always mean more money. We have to do better with the money we have, right? That doesn't always mean that. So I don't understand why a control transfer, why more children that doesn't belong in that district will affect the classroom size if they're going to be remote learning eventually or hybrid. But at any rate, I'm glad this is the first read, and I want us to be more mindful that we are the gatekeepers of thousands of children's education and their future. We are the gatekeepers of policy change and decision making. Everybody's voice matters. Does it make sense to us? There was one thing on that policy that I do not like at all. And I'm paraphrasing, and it was saying that if it's not great on behalf of the district has to suck certain things up if it's not great on behalf of the child. Do you understand? So we need to look at the district as a whole, but if it's not great on behalf of the child, then we need to reanalyze certain things. Now, if it's obviously, you know, because they want their child there because of a certain teacher, if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. You know, if it's gonna mess with the district's numbers or the situation we're in, then we need to figure it out. I'm glad this is the first read. I hope and pray that the community at large that has concerns with this policy change is listening. And I hope that their voice will be accounted for in the second read, in the third read. I have no I don't have any, qualms against certain situations, but at the end of the day, as long as this is thought out and we're asking the right questions, not to one another, the chair, forgive me, is not a parent of the district. Does he listen to the parents of this district? We need to understand who we are truly affecting and why are they utilizing this policy. And my son went to what? The popular school of the district, John Winthrop. And he suffered the first 6 months when we transferred him. And I questioned, did I make the right decision? Did I make the right decision as a parent? Because he struggled. He went from an A student in Marin School to a C student at John Winthrop. Why? Because John Winthrop was behind a few levels Marin School was behind a few levels than John Winthrop. Well, guess what? I got some teachers who backed me up and said, relax, calm down. He's a boy. He'll get it. Just keep encouraging him. Just keep being there for him. And sure enough, my child went from a C student in John Winthrop to an honor roll student in John Winthrop. And that to me was a great move as a parent. Because he got the adequate education that I felt, the quality education that I felt that he needed at that time. Now, I loved Marin School, and I had a great relationship with the teachers, and I was actually a PAC vice president of the school. But at that time, I needed to move him out. Why? Because of his education. Nothing else but because of his education. So let's be mindful with how we speak. Let's not generalize certain things, okay? And let's remember who we are truly serving. Now, with that being said, as I stated, the superintendent he has been beside parents for years. That is why I am who I am today. He has helped me build my knowledge in many areas. So I know he knows, I know he's in tune. I'm not questioning that. Let's just continue to be open-minded with the second read. Let's continue to be open-minded with the third read, and let's make sure that the community has a voice. And that's that.
Okay. Mr. Skalovic?
Yes. I agree with most of the sentiments said. We are in a district that some schools do better than others. I'd like to ask, is it question kind of convoluted here? Is it mostly the sibling policy that's causing the issues, or the control transfer policy in itself?
Well, you also have to remember we have additional magnet schools since the policy was, the inception over 30 years ago. So we also have those options available. The siblings are an issue, but again, if it's about saying, I want to put a child in a better school, then the siblings aren't going to matter then, because then the same premise goes for the entire family. Right. But again, it was presented. If it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't go anywhere. But again,
I'm currently
undecided. Need to look at them more closely.
Right. I'm currently undecided, and I think it would behoove us to hear more from the community, not from a group, because no group should have more power than an individual voter in presenting themselves to us. I don't think we should go before any specific group to present this, but I do believe maybe we should hold a forum where we could maybe listen to the voters and our taxpayers, because all these groups coming at us and calling us out for not meeting with them, these groups are 501c3s. They don't even pay taxes in our city. And we represent the taxpayers, and they should not have a louder voice than everybody else. So I think if we do consider getting community input in the community forum, groups are more than welcome to attend, but they should have an equal say with the rest of the community.
Well, and I agree with you, Mr. Sokolovic, and I think we need to look at it from both ends if we're going to get community support, input, those that may take advantage of wanting a controlled transfer, and those schools, the parents in those schools that are receiving the majority of the controlled transfers, because I think their voice matters as well.
I agree, both sides of this coin, because that brings up another point. When you say the needs of the district, it's not the needs of the business side of the district, it's the needs of the children in the district, because what you do with one child, say, let's take bullying, for instance. If we take the needs only of the bully into account, and we've got to cure him. And that bully continues to disrupt the class, and with no removal from the class, he's affecting 26 students or 27 students, but we're taking care of the needs of that student. We care about that student, but when we look at the needs of the class and the overall district, we got to take into account the effect of that decision of the individual on the entire student body.
Well, and I think it would be interesting to know if we had no controlled transfers, what the class size across our elementary schools would be. If it would lower class size universally, or with some tweaking of the district lines, would we then, instead of having class sizes of 29 in most cases, would we have class sizes of 22 and 23, which would benefit every child in the district? That's what we're trying to get a handle on. We're not going to know that right away. It's going to take a few years to see what the effects of that are. But I think long term, if we redistribute properly, you're going to look at all kids getting more individualized teaching and learning and instruction and intervention and enrichment, where then all kids will flourish, all schools will flourish. That's the intent here. The intent is not to remove, but to Ms. Martinez's point, if a kid is being bullied, that's not a controlled transfer. That's an administrative transfer to protect that child. But then we also have to address the bully. And why is that kid bullying other kids? And we remove one kid, it's just going to put somebody else in harm's way for another child to be bullied. So this is multi-pronged. It's not looking at.
But Superintendent, I apologize, but the one thing that I have to, I agree, wholeheartedly agree. But when a child is being bullied, and let's say, for example, without giving information, the child that we met with and the parent, it was affecting his academics. It was affecting his ability to learn. It was affecting his ability to contribute in the classroom. He started getting in trouble. Why? Because he started retaliating. He was being picked on enough that he said, forgive me. He said, forget this. I'm going to defend myself.
Sure.
So you have to understand that bullying needs to be taken care of properly, but at the same time, they're affecting the learning, not only of that one child, but of the rest of the classroom around them. So even though for that one isolated incident, it may not make sense to do it for every single one. We have to I agree with you, but it does interrupt the learning. And Joseph Polovic, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And we shouldn't go off of what a group wants, or we need to go off of all voters, all parents. I'm with you, Joe.
You know, and the other thing you have to understand too is this only really has an advantage to parents that have transportation. So as a parent, if I don't have transportation and I can't get my child to school because I don't have transportation, I don't have access to this. So I think, you know, this is a bigger problem than just a new policy or not. And that's why it's good to have these discussions. But again, to say that there's up to 2,500 kids that should be moved from their neighborhood school, that's unacceptable. This policy was not ever created to have that large a number. I can't believe it was. I think it's gotten out of hand, and some way, somehow, we need to get it under control so that we can really see what effects we could have across the district on improving education. Because moving a child is not the answer. That was made very clear in the commentary and public comments. It's making all our schools better and improving the quality of education, the quality of school safety of children, the facilities. It's really focusing on all of that, not just shifting some kids around and thinking that the problems get solved, because that's why we're in the predicament we're in today.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Skolowik?
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, looking at this, you know, some of this could be worded differently. I don't think the intent is to put the interests of the district ahead of the interests of students. I think it's maybe not worded as well as it could be. I think it should be modified to be, student-centric, while at the same time dovetailing with what's good for schools in terms of their own populations. As Ms. Martinez said, if a request just doesn't make sense because moving one person is going to displace another, well, then that's not fair, and that should not ever occur. And I think that's the kind of thing that you're trying to say. I just think it needs to maybe be worded a little better. And we can work on that. Another thing I would like to see in this document is, I don't see it spelled out here how somebody goes about getting or applying for this. I think there should be a little something in here that sets forth, where do you go to get an application? What minimal information are you going to want in that application? I know we don't want to get it so constrictive that we basically spell out what may or may not qualify, but I think parents need some kind of direction of, if this is something I want to pursue, how do I do this?
Well, it's in the current policy.
It's in the current, but it's not in this.
We would
So
just
that needs
transfer
to be,
that over.
yeah, that needs to be merged into this.
Yep.
Yeah, those are my only comments, is to modify the language about, the interests of the district versus student. Maybe based on what you just said, Mr. Testani, we want to revisit the issue of transportation. Because as you said, if you don't have a car, then this policy, this mechanism is of no use to you, because you could never find a way to bring your kid across town. So maybe we need to be thinking about, how do we address that?
Huh.
I don't.
Obviously, we're not going to increase.
I didn't say we did it tonight, but I'm saying that's a good question. How do you accommodate someone who has no vehicle, has no way to get their kid across town, even if they did get a controlled transfer approved? Does this start to make it onerous for them?
I'd like to make a comment on that.
Yeah.
I think if it's an administrative transfer because of bullying or actually a problem where it's out of the control, and it's needed, it's necessary, it's emergency, maybe that is something we could talk about, as far as providing transportation. But as far as just for other reasons, because they would like a better education, let's say. They think it's a better education of the school. I don't know that we're in the position to be offering transportation to everyone that wants it for those.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, if it is an administrative transfer, we've made that decision unilaterally. I would think in that scenario, transportation would apply. Is that correct?
No,
it does not.
No, because
so if you force somebody to move to another school across town and they don't have transportation,
that would be an individual door-to-door transportation. There wouldn't be any busing going to that school from that neighborhood.
Yes.
That would cost an extreme amount of dollars. So, and usually the request because of safety reasons comes from the parent, and they usually find a way to get the child there.
Yeah, so, busing, they have established routes within school areas, residency areas. And if you're suddenly going from the west end to the north end, there would not be a route to carry you.
No.
It just wouldn't exist.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I got my hands up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Benahan.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say this, and before I ask something to Mr. Destani, we have to understand and we need to work together for the best thing for Bristol School. We don't want parents to get upset with us that we are not doing the correct thing for our children, because we have to understand the safety is the priority for our kids. I don't want parents to get upset, oh, look at what the board members are doing. They don't care about the safety, transportation. I understand the quality of the money in other situation. I know we had the money there. A lot of we was closed almost for 5-6 months. So I'm just scared about the safety for our kids. I don't want parents in the community to think that the board members is not care. And when they say board member, that's including everyone. They're not gonna say name by name. They say, look what the board members, and I don't want people thinking like that. So my thing is for you, Mr. Testani, like to see if it's possible, you can send it to us, or you can send it to all the board members.
Albert, before you go any further, Rita just sent these things to all of us like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, no, that's something about what? Sorry.
No, these policies. The control transfer. Rita just sent this to everyone.
No, I
10
see that. I
minutes
already
ago.
see that. No, it's another question to Mr. Testani. No, it's the list. I just want to know if Mr. Testani, they can send, like to see the list of the school, where is the most student ask control transfer, and where parent want control transfer, and what school they are coming from. It's possible we can have that information, Mr. Testani.
Like I said, I'll ask data management. We don't have, I think, a complete accurate list from all the years of, relying on clerical. But I'll see what it is. We can identify the control transfers that we do have and what district school they should probably be attending. But again,
thank you. That's it.
But again, we're not looking to do this for next year. So to say we have the money because we were closed for 4 months, that money's gone. I mean, that money dries up quickly. So this is something to look at. This is, again, for the next 30 years or the next decade or maybe the next 5 years, and we have to revisit it again. This is more than just a temporary fix. This is trying to look at across the board how we can minimize this to the extreme cases that require it, not to everybody who applied. Because right now, if you apply, and it says very clearly, if there's under a certain number of students in a classroom in the grade level you're asking for, you get it. And that's not right. Because a week later, somebody can move into that neighborhood and then there's no room for that child. And that's what we're starting to see over and over and over again. And then when we tell the control transfer parent, you have to leave, they call here very upset because they have to go. But they have to go because somebody in the neighborhood needs that spot. They live there. They legitimately need to go to school.
I understand your point, Mr. Testani, and I'm shocked you said the money's gone, but that's another story. But the only thing I'm care is the safety for our kids. I don't want no parents come attack or go after us, because right now about this meeting we have tonight, you will see all the emails and phone calls you're going to receive and one of each other more members. So we try to, I know we can do the best for our kids and for safety. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's it.
Okay. I think Mr. Testani said that this is a problem that has escalated over many, many years, and it's just gotten beyond us. And he's not trying to just shut down all the controlled transfers as they exist now, but he's trying to give himself a little more latitude with how people are selected to receive a controlled transfer, so that it is only done in the most extreme of cases going forward. As he said, people who are in controlled transfers at the present, they would continue going into the future until they, moved up in the grades and went to high school and eventually graduate. But if we can control it going forward, then the burden will get less and less with each progressing year. And I think we just need to make it find a way to make this work so that it doesn't just get beyond us like it has over the last 10 or 20 years. So,
Mr. Chair.
It's a tough one. Mr.
Chair. Yes. On that note, it is a tough one. And with all the questions raised, not so much from the public, but from us on the board about the policy and things we would like to see in it. This policy came out of committee kind of fast.
Okay.
Policies usually
send it back.
I think I would like to make a motion to recommit the policy for further discussion and amending.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay, so this is a motion to send this policy back to the governance committee for further revision and vetting. Is there any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, this policy is going back to the governance committee where it will be further refined, and there's nothing wrong with that. In the end, we want the best thing possible with this, and if it takes a bunch of back and forth, so be it. As Mr. Testani has said, control transfers currently in place remain in place, and the ability to apply for them in the current year has been temporarily suspended due to the current COVID circumstances. So we're in no worse a place now than we were before. And, if we can get this wrapped up the best way possible, then that's what's important. Okay?
Mr. Chair, could I have a point of personal privilege?
Yes, Mr. Lombard.
I actually really meant to say this during the superintendent's report. I just want to acknowledge the difficulty of the whack-a-mole that you've been playing because it's been forced upon you. It's been a Herculean task. I know there's been very justifiable differences of opinions from within the board and the public about how we should have opened the schools and in what way. But given our decision, I just want to acknowledge that, I get these emails from you day in, day out about, another domino falling, and having to follow through with the sanitation and with the quarantine and with the closing. And it's not easy. And I can't imagine what you're doing. And I recognize the need for what we talked about earlier in the meeting today to go to a hybrid for the lower grades and possibly, doing completely remote for a short period of time or maybe extended. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to tell you that my reactions have been, oh my God, look what he has to deal with now. Oh, so thank you for what you're doing. And just wanted to take the time to say that. So
You're here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, just try to do the best job we can to protect our students, our families, our staff. We've been trying to be very open and honest with all our communications. I think most people appreciate that. But it's tough because this virus is just it's out of control. When you think you got it under control a little bit, obviously. Today, we saw that the state of Connecticut saw its highest infection rate since sometime back in June. I think we went up to 2.4%. It's still very good, but I think as a board, we're doing the right thing by being proactive to try to protect our families, our students, and our staff. So, but thank you. I really appreciate it. You don't always hear all the positive comments. You just tend to hear the negative. So.
Yep. All right. Thank you. That's
Okay.
it.
All right, so that concludes our business for this evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Ms. Allen. Is there a second?
Second.
I second.
Second by Mr. Lombard. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we're adjourning. The time is noted as being 8:10 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Everybody, be safe.
Sayonara. All right, I'm making mine down. I didn't wrap it because I need some sour cream. You're gonna be full tonight, baby. You're gonna be full. We only got one more wrap, huh? Thank you. We only got one more wrap because we're screwed because we love these things. I got, do you have money on your, you found your food stamp, right?
You know what? Oh, toma. We need this in our lives. It's my mom. Yeah. Wait till my mom sees it. She would be jelly. I told her. I told her what I was making. Oh, so he was at first. I was just like, yo, I don't know. Oh, you see, that's why I got my mom. And I'm like, listen, yo. Huh? Oh, okay. No, everything's all good. No, anyways, I told him. I said, oh shoot, yes, it was Columbus Day. That's why it's not there. Well, regardless of the fact. Yeah. What were you? Who was it? Oh, is he? I agree. Yeah. Well, you know that it does that automatically. There's no names to him either. It does that automatically when you call numbers. That's the smartphone recognition. Yeah, all smartphones do that, baby boy. All right, so we still got enough. What, baby? Yeah. Yeah, no, babe, we're in the same boat. Well, we're in the same boat, drowning, sinking, or swimming, and floating. So. Okay, so we got enough for tomorrow's lunch for me and you. We can split that. Tomorrow's Wednesday? Oh, okay. Well, I got enough for me for lunch. Albert, wait until I read what he said. And then I'll tell you, my mom was a little weird this morning, first thing this morning. You know, she was hurt. She was hurt. You need a fork? We're gonna do quick cleaning. I hope it's enough weekend. So, you couldn't take a picture. Well, yeah, I want to take a picture of my plato too. This is bomb.com. You want some more of the cheese juice on it or no? Yeah? Oh my God. No, you didn't. I kicked ass with my comment, right?
What you said?
I kicked ass.
Everybody agreed.
Yep.
That's not even what the fuck to say.
But did you hear? I encouraged Testani too. I reminded Testani where he came from. I reminded Testani how he started. I told him Testani has been beside parents for many years. That is why I am who I am today too. I wanted to remind him, what do you want to drink, Papa? There is a Coke, a lime, and there's one of each. There's a bunch of each. Well, I'll give you one. Well, I don't like it. So, how is it?